Welcome to the strange sort of home office where I've been doing a lot of my teaching over the last year. Hopefully that'll change in the upcoming year. So the things I found most useful, I just want to introduce some of the tools. And if you're interested in more specifically stage combat tools, I have a YouTube video online that I can share the link for to show that. But the main things that I would say just in general for movement, you gotta have a standing desk. If nothing else, those of us who are into movement, if we sit in our butts too long, we can feel them go under it, and it's just no fun. So to me, having a cart that I can move around was very useful. This is adjustable height, and it said sitting, standing. The stool I can move is also useful. What I have found though is that while the sitting is definitely sitting, the standing was not really standing. So what I actually had to do is I had to get a separate folding thing that went on this, and I screwed it down to the base that would be solid enough and tighten it up enough such that together, if I combine those things, it does eventually get my camera to about eye level. That's been very handy to have. The ability to move it around has been very handy to have. And I accessorized it with some clamp-on shelves and things just because I'm like that, and a cup holder because it's me. Because I'm in a small space, this may not be an issue for those of you who actually have the ability to go in and teach in the classroom and broadcast from there. But for me, this is I can touch the ceiling. I can almost touch the poles on each end. If I stick out a leg, I bet I could. The computer weren't in the way. So for me to be able to show a full body something for my students, it was really useful to be able to have some sort of a wide angle lens. Now this is made to just clip onto a cell phone. There's a lot of things like this, but I found that by shaving away the clip on the top of my laptop, it lets me mount it over my laptop camera. It's not the highest quality, might degrade things a little bit. Sometimes I get some lens flares if I'm not careful, but it really does help get my full body on screen in a way that I just could not get the laptop back far enough otherwise, especially if I need to interact with the laptop. If I need to be able to see the faces of my students, make comments and stuff, I don't have the option of mounting my laptop that far away on Zoom. Now you can use another camera. This is another option to have your laptop and perhaps a phone or a tablet or some other device logged into Zoom at the same time. Rather than switching cameras, I tried switching cameras. It's a pain in the butt. Having an external camera and a built-in camera and different microphones gets really confusing. I did try using a little wireless lavalier microphone that I could walk around with. Sound quality had issues, wasn't that great, and I don't have the money to buy a super nice one and hope that it works better. But having the wide angle on this and then having an additional device also logged in also helped. One problem I ran into with some of my students was that they had an issue being able to reverse things in their head. This is true in the classroom normally, right? Half the time people who are doing dance or movement, we have to learn to do everything left-handed, so our right-handed majority students are able to mirror us without having to flip things in their heads. With Zoom, yes, there is that mirror camera option, but that can confuse you as well as them, and there's always uncertainty over, do they see what I see, do they not see what I see? So one of the things that I decided to do was go ahead and mount, this is just a little selfie stick, and this can be mounted, tighten this up, less than an ideal system, but one of the advantages of being in my basement is that I have pipes everywhere. Any students that had a hard time reversing things in their head that would normally in a classroom be able to either stand behind me while I demonstrated something, or we can look in a mirror or whatever. This was able to give them a different perspective, so that while I was demonstrating something face first for most of the class and looking at the monitor so I can see what other students are doing, they have the option, if they want, of pinning the other video that shows the rear view. And so I can move my primary, which is attached to a laptop cart, wherever I need to. I have some ability to move this one, not a ton, but some. And so that way, if there is anything particular where, a student is confused as to, okay, which side is that? Is that my right? Is that my left? They have the option of viewing front view, back view. They can view it at the same time as me and not have to reverse things in their head. Is that my left foot? That's my right foot. It also, to some degree, can work as an overhead camera, so that if I'm doing something on the floor and I want students to be able to follow, it would allow me to give them that angle, or just to be able to look at footwork. The selfie stick is fairly posable. Oh. So if there's something particular though that I want them to track, whether I'm doing break falls or stretches or yoga or whatever, this gives me another perspective that can help sometimes. It's a bit of a moot point in my tiny little basement studio, but if you have a larger space, especially if you're, say, using a classroom and broadcasting to people elsewhere, you may need a way for the camera to follow you. And I know not all of us get assistants to teach with. So what we've got going on right now is an example of an automated system for tracking. So let me just show you how that's working here. So if we switch over to the other camera, you'll see that, this is not bad. It might lag a little bit. If I were trying to, play keep away, it might have issues. But if I just need to be able to do something like, say, yoga poses and have it be able to track as I get back up, it does a half decent job. So this particular one is the UpSpot. It was a Kickstarter campaign, but there's a number of things like it, anywhere from like $30 to $300. There's also some that use little key fob things, so that rather than a visual tracker, this one has a little camera right here. Some of them will just have a little thing that you wear, you can clip on or put in your pocket, and it will track you based on that. And that's especially nice if you do have assistants, if you have other people in the room, but you want to make sure that it stays focused on you when one of them walks off camera. For anybody else who does deal specifically with stage combat, you might be interested in this. This is a clamp-on bike maintenance arm. So the idea is that you mount it to the wall and it'll hold your bicycle while you work on it. But I found that it does also do a decent job of holding a sword, and that this can give me someone to use, a way to demonstrate. I had to loosen this enough that it could kind of move like a wrist. And so you got to find the right amount of tightness, but it's at least something of an option if we want to be able to talk about that. It gives me a pseudo equivalent to a training partner. And of course, if you're not dealing with sword work, yes, you can just make this an arm. I put some padding on it, but still not super convenient. So the other thing that I've done is, if you take this off, I made a paper mache arm, just using some of those tricks that I played with when I was trying to make my own masks. This is a little low right now. This is just buckled to this pillar in my basement, so I can mount it a little higher. I think it's sagged since I last used it. But if you need to be able to show some techniques, some ways of reacting, obviously it's not a real training partner, but sometimes that's the best you can do when you're on your own and figuring out how to do stuff at home. Some other things you might want to think about. Right now I've got this weird kind of just what I call my Jughead family of masks. Little jug face up here. Because for a little while I was using this as one of my sort of test dummies, since I could mount the arm to this. I can mount it to a heavy bag, but then it spins. Previously, I had up here, just as a place to display it when I got it home, a mask that I made when I took a workshop with Jonathan Becker on mask making and performance. And again, these are painted to look kind of like the traditional leather mask style, even though they're actually neoprene. And I had some issues because this was deemed to be a person of color, just because it's a sort of a leather-colored mask. It's a darker skin tone. If we were to take this as skin, it would be a darker skin tone than my own. And there were some people in my class who felt that me having a darker-skinned dummy, that was implying something about race. And so it hadn't been something that had been on my radar when coming up with class dummies. A lot of my stuff is either white because it's a paper mache gesso that I work with when I'm doing the larval style masks, or brown because they're meant to look like leather. And without having that full context, students were reading other things into it. So I did swap these out, and I apologize to that student that affected them in that way, but and thank them for letting me know, because that requires some trust and openness from them to be able to say that to me. And it had not been on my radar at all. So now I know, now you know. Just that these things can also be an issue when we are just grabbing whatever we have at hand and not thinking about how it might come across to a student. Hopefully the laundry detergent jug is not going to be too close to anyone's lived experience to be an issue. Just a couple other quick things while I'm in the space here. One is I did try soundproofing the space to some degree. It didn't work too well. I mean, when I put some of this foam stuff up, I hung some drapes. I've got an eggshell foam over the door to my basement. Sound still came straight through. It might help a little bit with my sound not echoing back at me, but it doesn't really help mask outdoor sound when you've got kids upstairs doing their homeschool PE online and things like that. Green screen. Obviously, you've all noticed this by now. For things like the little video podcasty things that I've done, that's great. It lets me drop in something, or Zoom meetings. I can put in a university background fairly easily. What it's not great for is specific movement stuff. One problem I did run into sometimes was no matter how I tried to adjust the lighting and get it as even as possible, especially if I had a reflective surface, something like a sword, where it might reflect some of the green from certain angles, or just be a little bit thin and hard to see. That there were problems sometimes where the green screen would make this just too hard to show up. And so in terms of being able to see specifically, where my hands are, things like that, there were some issues where the green screen caused problems. So specifically for my stage combat and movement classes, I would usually just choose not to have Zoom replace the background and just keep it as a plain green backdrop. Whereas when I'm having more business meeting-y or acting classes, talking-based classes, things like that, I was able to drop something else in here fairly easily.